My name is Dan McHugh. The name of my firm is Freeman McHugh. We are the public relations firm that represents the Queen Mary. And so when we began talking about how to embody, in advance of the 80th anniversary of this maiden voyage, the entire story, I suggested that we find people who could tell that story in a way that none of us could, with poignancy, with directness, with legitimacy, and more. And he said, well, if you think. And with that, off we went. That led me on an incredible adventure. I have spoken with probably 100 people all around the world. Some of whom have never told their story of their relationship with the Queen Mary to anyone. Along the way, we bumped into a guy called Randolph Churchill. So a major part of what we do here is to seek new, creative, and fun ways to look at history, make sense of it all. Part of the original idea that I took to John was, let me get a member of the royal family and bring them here. And we'll have Lord so-and-so or whatever come and be part of the program. And so I went off on that tear for a while. And then I realized that the person who is really most connected with the ship was Winston Churchill. Churchill affects our lives even today. The things that he said, the things that he did, the inspiration he brought to the world as a whole. And so I sort of shifted gears, turned left from Buckingham Palace, reached out through friends of friends of friends to Randolph Churchill, who got this very strange phone call from a stranger in California and said, well, I can meet with you for a couple of minutes, and I happen to be in Europe on business. We arranged to meet in London, in of all places, the Churchill War Rooms. And we had a 5-minute session. At the end of it, Randolph looks at me and goes, well, this sounds kind of good. Yeah, let's see where this goes. And with that opening, we have come a long way. Not only with the help of Cambridge University and Churchill College and other experts and scholars who have lent their expertise and their encouragement to all of us. All of this being spearheaded by Randolph. Had he not, as John initially said, let's see where this goes. You guys wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here, and this movie would not have been made. And with that, I'd like to introduce our guest of honor, someone who has become a great friend to the ship, Randolph Churchill. Randolph will take questions from you.
Well, Dan, he's a prize-won rascal. Never get into a conspiracy with that young man. The first thing I want to say, it's such a privilege that people who served Britain, the United States in the Second World War that you're here today. And I must say, the Queen Mary stands you and what that great generation stood for so proudly today here in Long Beach, in a way only Californians could do in their own way. I want to touch on, last year we had the 70th anniversary of victory in Europe. And I must say, I think the commemorations were just so fitting. It was our last chance properly to say thank you to all those veterans and for all those who served in the Second World War. And the wonderful thing is, the younger generation now, they're really inspired by history. They want to know what their grandparents, great-parents and great-great-grandparents got up to. And I think the history of the Queen Mary just is the most incredible focal point to get people to talk about that history. And seeing those wonderful stories captured on camera for people to enjoy, the programme is absolutely outstanding. And I really want to congratulate the Queen Mary team and everybody involved with it, because it's truly remarkable. Dan, he certainly was a rascal. When he called me in the Churchill War Rooms, he said, I did a little bit of filming, and yeah, we'd like to pop down to Chapel, come down and maybe have a word with you. So I would agree to be filmed at 10 o'clock at Chapel. I arrived a little bit early because I wanted to sneak around the garden, to be accosted by the gardener to say, Mr. Churchill, there was a slight problem. The team from the Queen Mary, they were seen clambering over the wall at 4:45 in the morning, wanting to get the sunrise. And we've never had in all the history of Chartwell anybody clambering over the wall. But anyway, my great-grandparents loved their time on the Queen Mary. It was an incredible oasis, particularly in the post-war trips they took to America. And they enjoyed every aspect of the full facilities on board the Queen Mary. And of course, on a number of those trips, Churchill, having been given the order of the boot by the electorate at the end of the election in 1945, he had time on his hands and he was invited by President Truman to go and speak in a little place called Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri. The speech there that he delivered was one of the most important speeches he ever gave, warning about the threat of Stalin, the Iron Curtain, and the Eastern Europe just disappearing behind that wall. And it was a huge shock to the Americans who had sort of considered the Russians to be our great and long-term friends. Well, Churchill, I think, on the way back from Fulton was on the Queen Mary, and the trustees at Westminster College had created a Churchill museum there. They brought, stone by stone, from the City of London, a bombed Sir Christopher Wren church and rebuilt it in Fulton, Missouri. And it's the trustees at Westminster College that have enabled the painting exhibition to take place here on board the Queen Mary for the rest of this year, and members of our family. And I really salute those trustees for having the vision in creating that museum. But we've had the most wonderful family moment. I agreed to loan my great-grandfather's travelling painting easel for the exhibition on board the ship. It's the first time it's actually ever left, since my great-grandfather's death, it's the first time it's ever left Chartwell. And when it was unpacked by the curator here, the exhibition, they opened the boxing up, and the leather case had my great-grandfather's Queen Mary first-class stamp sticker sitting on the side of it. And isn't that a wonderful connection to have between our family and the Queen Mary that's enduring? But personally, I think the great link is those who came on the Queen Mary in those early days and gave us our freedoms. Thank you so much. Let's have a great celebration.
Thank you.